Get lit. Get lit. Get lit. Everybody get lit right now. Get lit. Get lit.
So around the country, folks are breathing a sigh of relief. They are happy that America has avoided a very unnecessary government shutdown. Of course, this is the Diamond K Show. My name is Diamond K. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the shutdown. The shutdown that never was. The shutdown, thankfully, that did not happen. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean that at all. So many folks were surprised. I was surprised. Congress avoided a government shutdown that was scheduled to happen over the weekend. And they did this by passing a stopgap spending bill, also known as a continuing resolution. Now, this continuing resolution funds federal agencies at last year's levels for another 45 days. So that is a small window. Now, here's what's frustrating about Congress. They get a lot of time off. They have a lot of opportunities to fix these things, yet they wait till the last minute, seconds before the deadline, before they try to work these things out. So government shutdowns, here's why they happen. Under the Anti-Deficiency Act, initially passed in 1884 and amended in 1950, federal agencies cannot spend or obligate any money without an appropriation or other approval from Congress. Now, when Congress fails to enact the 12 annual appropriation bills, federal agencies must cease all non-essential functions until Congress acts. This is no surprise. They know that this is coming. But when this happens, it is known as a government shutdown. The ceasing of all non-essential functions. Now, if Congress enacts some, but not all of the 12 appropriation bills, only agencies without appropriations have to shut down. And this is known as a partial shutdown. Now, when that happens, during these unnecessary shutdowns, many federal employees are told not to come to work, not to report to work through and under a 2019 law. They get paid retroactively when the shutdown ends. So government employees who provide what are deemed as essential services, such as air traffic control, law enforcement, continue to work. But they don't get paid until Congress takes action to end the shutdown. Now, all this applies only to the roughly 25% of federal spending subject to annual appropriation by Congress. So benefits like Social Security and Medicare continue to flow because they are authorized by Congress and laws that do not need annual approval. Now, services offered by Social Security benefit offices may be limited during a shutdown. In addition, the Treasury can continue to pay interest on U.S. Treasury debt on time. So, needless to say, shutdowns can be disruptive. They lead to delays in processing applications for passports, small business loans, government benefits, shuttered visitor centers and bathrooms at national parks, fewer food safety inspectors, and various inconveniences. Shutdowns are sufficiently likely that the White House Office of Management and Budget posts detailed contingency plans. They're letting you know what's going to be affected. The government agencies maintain, the shutdown, as well as a 51-page Q&A on procedures. So we have avoided that. We have at least for 45 days. Now, the reason why a shutdown was likely this fall stems back to the summertime. With the backing of Republican leaders in the House and the Senate, Congress passed and President Biden signed a Fiscal Responsibility Act. Now, this lifted the ceiling on federal debt and set limits on annual appropriated spending, one for defense, one for non-defense, and for the fiscal years of 2024, which began on Sunday. Now, at the same time, the expectations were that this settled the overall size of the appropriation bills, and Congress would pass 12 bills that added up to the agreed upon levels. Senate Appropriations Committees followed that path, and that has passed 12 appropriations bills with bipartisan support. That's Democrats and Republicans. But the House Republicans were mad. They were big mad. They were unhappy with the agreement. Speaker Kevin McCarthy struck this agreement with the White House and wanted to spend less than the levels specified in the Fiscal Responsibility Act, much to the dismay of Democrats and the White House. Biden said that he would veto the appropriations bills that were pending. House bills also included provisions on abortion, contraception, regulation of tobacco, and health care for trans persons that are not likely to pass the Senate. So when the House and the Senate pass different bills, the next step is a conference committee at which the two chambers are supposed to try to work things out, try to have some type of a compromise, which goes to a vote in each chamber before going to the president. That is likely to be very contentious this year. And there's not that much time. Like I said, 45 days. So Congress has not passed an appropriations bill for the entire fiscal year. It passes a temporary spending bill, continuing resolutions, kind of extending things the way they were until we can work things out. Now, this funds the government, then the operations continue until a specified date. Now, continuing resolutions often, although not always, continue the level funding at the prior year's appropriation levels. There were 47 continuing resolutions between fiscal year 2010 and 2022. 47. Now, they range from 1 day to just under 6 months. Although they keep the government operating, it's very difficult for government agencies to manage because they often have to plan for a government shutdown because they can't be sure if the continued resolution is going to pass. They can disrupt agencies' hiring. They can make it very difficult to plan things out. So you have that. And then these shutdowns tend to be more expensive for Republicans who claim that they want to, get a hold on spending and rein in spending. There's a lot of interest that is attached to these shutdowns. Not always the best idea. You know what I'm saying? Not always the best idea. They can definitely be counterproductive. But the government shutdown was averted, and Kevin McCarthy has risked his job in doing this. He risked his job because he had to make some deals. So Congress was able to avoid the government shutdown. There was a drop in Ukraine aid which I agree with. Let me say that. So, like I said, Saturday, Congress passed a short-term funding bill to avoid this government shutdown, mere hours before the deadline. Folks were thinking that things were going to get just all messed up. It really raised some questions about Congress's ability to pass additional Ukraine assistance only 1 week after President Volodymyr Zelensky visited D.C. asking for more. Yes, I know you're giving us billions with a B, but can we have more, please? Yeah, they want more money. I can name a lot of places around this country that need money, that could use the money. Not even the money that they're sending over there. But this is military stuff. This is the military industrial complex. This is defense. This is big business. And they like to try to find ways to make that happen. Even though I don't think it is needed, even though it is a very difficult sell to Americans for the most part. Anyway, the Defense Department no longer has funds for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, and the $1.5 billion it has left to backfill U.S. stockpiles of weapons that have been sent to Kyiv expired on September the 30th. The Pentagon said that a previous accounting error meant it had appropriated approximately $5.5 billion in funds to keep transferring weapons to Ukraine past the end of the fiscal year. How do you have a accounting error like that? What? How do you have an accounting error like that? The White House in August asked Congress for an additional $24 billion in additional military and economic aid to Ukraine. But even in the Senate, where Ukraine enjoys very broad bipartisan support, appropriators scaled back to $6 billion. They act like they're doing a favor. $6 billion from the 24. I mean, what are you doing with the money? What are you doing with the money? Have we seen any progress whatsoever in this in this investment in Ukraine? Because I don't see it. I don't see it. So so we have that, and you know, I've talked about my lack of interest in this Ukraine investment. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. But the government shutdown has been averted. Now, there was not a lot of time to spare. The threat of the federal government shutdown suddenly shifted over the weekend. And President Biden signed a temporary funding bill to keep the agencies open. And like I said, the package dropped aid to Ukraine. That's good. The White House priority opposed by a growing number of GOP lawmakers. They usually get things wrong, but we do agree with regards to that. They also increased federal disaster assistance by $16 billion. That was meeting President's full request. The bill funds the government until November 17th. It's getting close to the holidays. You know what I mean? And they like to do this. So it was chaotic days of turmoil in the House. Speaker Kevin McCarthy abruptly abandoned demands for steep spending cuts from his right flank, the MAGA wing, and instead relied on Democrats to pass the bill, which was a risk to his own job. The Senate followed with passage, closing a whirlwind day at the Capitol. Now, this is good news for the people of America right now. Kevin McCarthy, I think, has proved, maybe I underestimated Kevin McCarthy. He is catching a lot of fire from the MAGA wing, and they are threatening his job through Matt Gaetz. McCarthy is a Republican from California, and he said before the House vote, we're going to be adults in the room, and we're going to keep government open. That's what he said. That's what happened, and he seems to be saying it with his chest. For the House package to be approved, McCarthy was forced to rely on Democrats because the Speaker's hard right said that it was going to oppose any short-term funding measure, denying him the votes needed. He has a very slim majority of only 5. And this move, he dared the right to try to call for his job, even though calls have intensified. He has left those conservative holdouts behind. McCarthy is almost certain to be facing a motion to try to remove him from office, and it is not clear if they have enough votes to topple the Speaker. He went to the Democrats once, so I'm sure that he will probably go to them again. Go to the Democrats for help. It's very interesting. I think that bipartisan Republicans and Democrats working together is not a bad thing. I think that it is something that people like to see. I think that it is a good thing. It does not happen as often as it should. It definitely needs to happen more. So you have that government shutdown averted for 45 days. Before you know it, it's going to be November 17th. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep things going. We're going to be able to keep this country on track going into the holiday season. Then these adults are going to have to make things work. So we talked about Republican Representative Matt Gaetz. He has filed a resolution to oust Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker. It is setting up a likely showdown. There's going to be a vote in the House in the days ahead. You know, grab your popcorn. This is going to be interesting. So he has launched this effort. Matt Gaetz has launched this effort to get rid of McCarthy. And we've seen this before. We've seen this before. McCarthy said over the weekend, if somebody wants to remove me because I want to be the adult in the room, go ahead and try. Daring them. This is a Republican on Republican violence. His critics, McCarthy's critics, namely Matt Gaetz, are attempting to do that. They're attempting to, they said, you about to lose your job. That's what he said. We're going to see how this goes. But McCarthy has been brushing his shoulders off, said that he is focused on doing the work that has to be done. So when it comes to a motion to vacate, that is what they have been threatening McCarthy with. A motion to vacate. Now, the rules of the House allow for any single lawmaker, Democrat or Republican, to make a motion to vacate the chair, essentially an attempt to fire the Speaker from that leadership position through a privileged resolution. So this resolution, it's rare and it's a strong procedural tool that has only been used twice in the last 100 years. But in recent years, conservatives have wielded the motion as a weapon against their own leaders. So at any point in time, it's very interesting how it works. Any point in time, a member of the House can introduce a privilege resolution, a designation that gives it priority over other measures. And they do this to declare that the office of the Speaker of the House of Representatives is vacant. Once the motion is introduced, the lawmaker can walk onto the House floor and request a vote. Such a vote would force House leaders to schedule a vote on the resolution within 2 legislative days. But there's procedural motions that members of either party can introduce to slow down and stop the process altogether. We're probably going to see some of that stuff. But if those tactics fail and the resolution actually comes to the floor, the vote, it would take a simple majority of the House, 218 votes, when no seats are vacant to remove the Speaker. So we're going to see that, and it's going to be interesting. The folks that are trying to oust McCarthy, the ones that want to get him removed, it actually begins with just one person, Matt Gaetz. He's a member of the ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus. They have been threatening to file this resolution to remove him ever since he was nominated for Speaker earlier this year. So they got like 21 or so folks who voted against McCarthy round after round as he fought to become Speaker, while others eventually relented and voted in favor of McCarthy or voted present. Gaetz fought until the very end. If they actually oust McCarthy, the House would either enter uncharted territory if a motion to vacate this effort against McCarthy were to pass the full House. That would be interesting. New candidates for Speaker could emerge, but there's also nothing to stop Republicans from nominating McCarthy again. We are entering into a very, I would say, a wild time. A very wild time, because there's no need for this. But I love to see it. I love to watch the Republicans squirm around and try to figure this out. But it's ultimately because the government shutdown did not happen. The folks in the Freedom Caucus wanted the shutdown to happen, and they did not get their way. So they in their feelings. They in their feelings because they did not get their way, and they are trying to lash out at who they blame for this, and they mostly blame McCarthy. He blamed McCarthy for working with Democrats. How dare you keep the country going? How dare you do that? That's what they're saying. And it's not a good look, but no surprise here, because this is something that they put out there, something that they threatened to do. And it appears that they have followed up with those threats. Of course, you listen to the Diamond K Show here at ONFIRE-TV, breaking news, politics, and hip-hop culture. Weekdays, 6 p.m. right here on ONFIRE-TV.com. Unlock everything ONFIRE-TV has to offer. Just log on to ONFIRE-TV.com/join, ONFIRE-TV.com/join, or click the link below. And we're going to take a quick break in a moment. OnFire TV is the destination for 24/7 news, opinion, and entertainment. We are a media company that produces and delivers streaming content to global consumers that are engaged by political, business, music, sports, and social conversation. ONFIRE-TV produces daily independent news, educational, and entertainment shows hosted by myself, Diamond K, and others. You can make a donation to ONFIRE-TV. We are funded entirely through advertisements and individual donations. We cannot do this without your support. Our programs could not survive and grow without the help of the people. You can start your monthly donations of $10 or more right now and help ONFIRE-TV stay strong and stay independent all year round. Thank you so much. Now, you do not have to miss a minute of our programs. You can stream past episodes on demand from any device. Our programs celebrate and educate through real conversations and insightful dialogue via our talk shows, podcasts, scripted and unscripted web series, documentaries, and so much more. We're going to do this. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with more of the show after this.
Represent, where you from, DJs rocking, hands in the air. Who's running this club? Diamond K. Who's running this club? Diamond K. Show me what you got. Make it hot. Show me what you got. Where you from? 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 Don't stop. Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Make it hot. Show me what you got. One more time. West side. Make it hot. East side. Make it hot. South side. Make it hot. Both side. Make it hot. West side. Make it hot. East side. Make it hot. South side. Make it hot. Both side. Make it hot. One more time. Say it loud. Show me what you got. Show me what you got. One more time. Make it hot. Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Make it hot. Show me what you got.
Welcome back. You made Diamond K in here, of course. The Diamond K Show on Fire-TV Radio on Fire. Yes, he's mad. He's angry. He's in his feelings. Donald Trump was seething through the start of the trial in New York. This civil lawsuit accuses him of lying about his wealth. He is defiant. The former president spent a day in court Monday for, the sometimes testy start of a trial in this fraud lawsuit that could cost him control of Trump Tower and several other prized properties. He says it is a disgraceful trial. there was a lunch break, and after listening to attorneys for New York Attorney General Letitia James just call him a habitual liar. The state's lawsuit accuses Trump of and his company of deceiving banks, insurers, and others by misstating his wealth for years in financial statements. They were lying year after year after year. Kevin Wallace, an attorney in the James office, said as Trump sat at the defense table, he looked straight forward, crossed his arms, faced away from the screen that showed details of the Wallace presentation. Now, Trump's control over Trump Tower and other major real estate holdings is in jeopardy as this trial begins. So there are properties in Miami and Charlotte and DC, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. Trump denies wrongdoing and voluntarily attended a trial that he called a sham and a scam and a waste of the state's time. But he was there because that's how important this is. So if he's telling you that it's not that important, if he's telling you that it is not that big of a deal, then you have to know that it really is. It really is important. It really is a big deal because, like I said, if it was not a big deal, if it was not important, he would have skipped it. He would have not been there. But he was there, and he's there because he's running for office. This is always part of the show for Donald Trump. It's always part of the show. It's always something that he's using to try to game the system. He's always trying to game the system. He's always trying to do that. So he claims that what we have here is an attempt to hurt me in an election. He said this outside the courtroom, adding that I don't think the people of this country are going to stand for it. However, they are watching, they are looking, they are listening, and I think that they are actually entertained by the shenanigans of Trump. But one thing that is not, one thing that folks really want to see happen is some true accountability, some true consequences. We have not seen that. James, Trump sneered at Letitia James as he passed her on his way to lunch. She left smiling. Meanwhile, his campaign immediately began fundraising off of his appearance. This is the real reason why he's here. Trump left for the day claiming that he scored a victory, pointing to comments that he viewed as Judge Arthur Anna Gordon, coming around to the defense view that most of the suit's allegations are too old. The judge suggested that testimony about Trump's 2011 financial statement was beyond the legal time limit. Wallace promised to link it to a more recent loan agreement, but Trump took the judge's remarks as outstanding developments for him. So if they're going back to something from 2011, they're going to have to do, they're definitely going to have to do better than that. Now, the judge ruled last week that Trump committed fraud in his business dealings. If upheld on appeal, the ruling could force Trump to give up New York properties, including Trump Tower, a Wall Street office building, golf courses, and a suburban estate. Trump has called it a corporate death penalty and insisted the judge, who is a Democrat, is unfair and out to get him. James is seeking $250 million in penalties and a ban on Trump doing business in the state of New York. As you can see, things are very, very serious for the Donald. Very serious. Now, the former president and his two eldest sons, Trump Organization executives and fixer turned enemy, Michael Cohen, are all listed among dozens of potential witnesses. Now, the former president isn't expected to testify for several weeks. His trip to court on Monday marked a remarkable departure from his past practice. He normally doesn't show up for these things. Trump did not go to court as either a witness or a spectator when his company and one of its top executives was convicted of tax fraud last year. Did not show either for a civil trial earlier this year, where the jury found him liable of sexual assaulting writer E. Jean Carroll. You remember in that department store dressing room, he did not come there. This time I wanted to watch the witch hunt myself, he said outside of court. Now, in a recent court filing, James's office alleged that Trump exaggerated his wealth by as much as $3.6 billion. Now, he claimed his 3-story Trump Tower penthouse with the gold fixtures and all that was nearly 3 times its actual size and worth $327 million, far more than any New York City apartment has ever gotten, James said. He valued Mar-a-Lago as high as $739 million, more than 10 times a more reasonable estimate of its worth, James maintained. Every estimate was determined by Mr. Trump, Wallace said in his opening statement. He pointed to pre-trial testimony by the Trump Organization figures and ex-insiders, including Michael Cohen, who said that the company estimated assets to get to this predetermined number that Trump wanted. Wallace also alleged the scheme got the company better loan ratings, saving it $100 million in interest. They hid all their weaknesses and convinced these banks to take on hundreds of millions of dollars in risk, he said, adding that while the defendants can exaggerate to Forbes magazine or on television, they cannot do it while conducting business in the state of New York. Defense lawyers said that the financial statements were legitimate representations of prime properties that can command top dollar. This is not fraud. This is real estate, attorney said in the opening statement. She accused the Attorney General's office of setting a very dangerous precedent for all business owners in the state of New York. We should be able to lie about our businesses, they're saying. But this is about tricking banks. Banks made loans to him that were fully repaid, he said. Business partners made money, and Trump's own company flourished. So they probably want to know, who's the victim? Why is this trial happening? Who has he defrauded? Is what his legal team is saying. There's going to be a lot from this in the days and weeks to come. This trial is going to last, according to estimates, several months. We're definitely going to be following this. I don't think he's going to be there all the time, but it was interesting to see him there today. $250 million fraud trial starting on Monday. And Attorney General James plans to call his adult sons as witnesses. Oh, this is going to be a mess. This is going to be a mess. But we are here for it. Could not happen to a better it could not happen to a better person. Donald Trump, that is. This could not happen to a better person. So is there going to be some type of accountability? I don't know. I doubt it very seriously. It just doesn't seem to happen for this guy. He seems to be able to get away with everything. Everything and anything and everything. Of course, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok at The Diamond K Show. Of course, ONFIRE-TV, Radio on Fire. We're here weekdays, 6 p.m., breaking down the news, breaking down politics, breaking down music and entertainment. So much, and so much more to go today. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of the show after this.